When life becomes loud and the world pulls you in 100 different directions, there is a quiet place your heart keeps calling you back to. It is the place where worries soften, where fear loosens its grip, and where your soul finally remembers what it was created for. My dear brothers and sisters, every struggle, every heartbreak, every unanswered question in your life is gently guiding you toward one invitation. Come closer to Allah, because closeness to Him is not just an act of worship. It is refuge, healing, and the deepest form of love your soul will ever know. When a person begins to feel distant from Allah, they often assume that this distance is because Allah has turned away from them. They assume that something about their existence has made them unworthy of His nearness. But the truth is far more comforting and far more beautiful. Allah never distances Himself from His servant. It is the human heart that drifts, that forgets, that becomes absorbed in the noise of the world. And yet, even in that drifting, even in that forgetting, Allah remains near. Nearer than the jugular vein, nearer than the fears that cloud the mind, nearer than the failures that burden the soul. This nearness is a mercy, a reminder, a constant invitation back to Him. But the heart often becomes wrapped in layers, layers of pain, layers of disappointment, layers of sin, layers of dunya, until the person begins to believe that they are too far gone. And so the journey back to Allah begins with remembering His nearness, not earning it, not achieving it, but simply remembering what has always been true. Because the heart cannot seek what it has forgotten. It cannot love what it does not feel. It cannot return to a place that it no longer believes exists. And so the first step is to pause, to breathe, and to acknowledge that even in your moments of weakness, even in your moments of confusion, even in your moments of heartbreak, Allah is near. This realization alone begins to soften the heart. It reminds you that you are not abandoned, you are not unseen, you are not unheard. Many people carry silent battles within themselves, fears they cannot explain, griefs they cannot share, wounds they hide even from those closest to them. And in those hidden places, the loneliness can feel overwhelming. But if you sit with those feelings long enough, if you allow yourself to look deeper, you begin to sense that your soul is not asking for people to understand it. It is asking for its creator. Because the soul recognizes its owner in a way the mind never fully can. It feels the pull toward Him even when the person is running in the opposite direction. That is why every time you run toward dunya, you feel empty. Every time you seek comfort in temporary things, the relief fades. Every time you try to fill your heart with something other than Allah, it slips right through your fingers. This emptiness is not a punishment. It is a sign that your heart is made for something higher, something more lasting, something eternal. And when you realize this, you begin to understand that Allah's nearness is not discovered in grand moments. It is discovered in the softness of humility, in the quiet of early mornings, in the sincerity of whispered prayers, in the tears that fall when no one is watching, in the forgiveness you seek when no one knows what you've done, in the gratitude you feel when blessings overwhelm you. But sometimes the heart struggles to feel this nearness because life has hardened it. Pain has made it cautious. Disappointment has made it guarded. Betrayal has made it fearful. And sin has made it heavy. When your heart is wounded, it doesn't know how to trust. When your heart is exhausted, it doesn't know how to hope. And when your heart is drowning in guilt, it doesn't know how to return. Many people carry guilt like a chain around their necks, believing that past mistakes define them, believing that sins stain their identity, believing that Allah is displeased with them beyond repair. But Allah's mercy is not like human mercy. His forgiveness is not like human forgiveness. Humans get tired of giving, tired of forgiving, tired of trying. Allah never does. He invites again and again. Even when you reject the invitation, He forgives. Even when you repeat the same mistake more times than you can count, He waits for your return, even when you run from Him for years. This is why remembering His nearness is not simply an act of knowledge, it is an act of healing. Because a person who knows that Allah is near begins to feel safe again. They begin to feel held again. They begin to feel hope again. And yet this journey is not always easy. There are days when your heart feels numb, days when your prayers feel empty, days when you stand in worship and feel nothing, days when you cry out in dua but the answers seem delayed. And in those moments, Shaitan whispers that you are failing, that your faith is weak, that Allah is displeased with you. But the truth is the opposite. Every step you take toward Allah during the moments when you feel nothing counts more than the steps taken during ease. When you push through spiritual dryness, your sincerity is being purified. When you pray while feeling disconnected, your heart is being tested and strengthened. When you make dua while feeling unheard, your trust is being expanded. These moments are not a sign of Allah's distance. They are a sign of His love. Because He is shaping you, elevating you, preparing you for something greater than you can see. Right now. And even when your heart cannot feel Him, He is near. There are people who feel close to Allah not because their lives are perfect, but because their reliance is. They have learned to turn every fear into a conversation with Allah, every disappointment into a lesson from Allah, every blessing into gratitude toward Allah. They have learned that closeness to Him is not found only in the masjid or only in times of worship. It is found in the way they carry themselves, the way they speak, the way they forgive, the way they let go, the way they trust. It is found in the moments they choose patience over anger, humility over pride, sincerity over showing off, gratitude over complaining. Closeness to Allah is not a moment, it is a way of life. And that life begins with remembering that He is near. Sometimes Allah allows you to experience heartbreak so that your heart breaks open and light can enter. Sometimes He removes people from your life so that you finally turn to Him. Sometimes He delays what you want so that you realize your timeline is not the one that matters. Sometimes He places you in darkness so you finally search for His light. And during all these moments, He is near. Near in His mercy, near in His wisdom, near in His protection. But you only begin to feel this nearness when you quiet the noise around you and listen to what your soul has been trying to tell you. Your soul does not seek wealth. Your soul does not seek status. Your soul does not seek validation. It seeks Allah. It longs for Him. It yearns for Him. And every time you ignore that yearning, you feel restless. When you respond to it, you feel peace. To get closer to Allah, you must first reclaim the parts of yourself that dunya has taken. You must reclaim your time from distractions. You must reclaim your heart from attachments that weigh it down. You must reclaim your purpose from the expectations of others. You must reclaim your identity from the labels society places upon you. And you must reclaim your hope from the whispers that tell you you're not good enough. Closeness begins with honesty. Be honest with Allah about your struggles. Tell Him when you feel weak. Tell Him when you feel ashamed. Tell Him when you feel lost. Tell Him when you feel confused. People may judge your vulnerability, but Allah never does. People may misunderstand your emotions, but Allah never will. People may abandon you at your lowest, but Allah never leaves. This level of openness allows the heart to soften. And when the heart softens, it begins to feel His nearness again. The journey to closeness requires patience. You will not always feel the sweetness of faith. You will not always find your ibadah glowing with emotion. You will not always feel inspired. But consistency is more beloved than perfection. A person who shows up with sincerity, even with a tired heart, is closer to Allah than the one who only turns to Him when they feel motivated. Allah sees your intention. He sees your effort. He sees your struggle. And every small act becomes a means to draw you closer. Every ayah you read, even when distracted. Every salah you pray, even when tired. Every dhikr you whisper, even when numb. Every tear you shed, even when silent. These actions accumulate and transform you from the inside out. And so, remembering that Allah is always near becomes a guiding light through every phase of life. It anchors you during uncertainty. It comforts you during sorrow. It humbles you during success. It strengthens you during weakness. It reminds you that no matter where you have been, you can always return. It reminds you that no matter what you have done, His mercy is greater. It reminds you that no matter how far you feel, He is closer than you think. And the more you remind yourself of this truth, the more your heart begins to realign itself with what truly matters. The more your soul begins to heal, the more your life begins to make sense, and the closer you get to the one who has been near all along. Purifying your intentions and reconnecting through sincere worship is not simply about performing acts of devotion. It is about reshaping the very core of why you do what you do. Many people worship Allah out of habit, out of routine, or out of societal expectation. They pray because they were taught to pray. They fast because others fast. They recite Quran because it is part of their upbringing. But true closeness to Allah begins when your worship is no longer powered by routine, but by sincerity, when your actions are no longer driven by what others expect, but by what your soul craves. Sincere worship is not measured by how perfect your outward actions are, but by how present your heart is. And to reach this presence, the heart must be purified from the intentions that dilute its connection with Allah. The heart must be freed from wanting to be seen, praised, validated, or admired. Because when your worship becomes about people, even in the smallest way, it loses its sweetness, its purity, its ability to elevate you. The soul knows when it is performing for creation instead of the creator. It feels heavy, tired, hollow. But when worship is sincere, even if imperfect, it becomes a source of peace. It becomes a refuge. It becomes a returning. Sincerity is a journey that begins with self-awareness. You cannot purify what you do not recognize. And so you must ask yourself, why am I performing this act of worship? Am I praying to please Allah or to ease my guilt? Am I giving charity to be seen or because I genuinely care? Am I reading Quran to reflect or just to finish a page? Am I making dua because I trust Allah or because I'm afraid of losing what I love? These questions are not meant to shame you, but to free you. Because once you see your intention clearly, you can reshape it, redirect it, refine it. You can remind yourself that the purpose of worship is not to impress people, but to draw nearer to Allah. It is a private conversation, a secret connection, a sacred moment between you and the one who already knows everything about you. And when this becomes your perspective, the simplest act becomes meaningful. Raising your hands in dua becomes a moment of surrender. Reading a single verse becomes nourishment. Whispering a small dhikr becomes a source of light. You no longer worship out of pressure, you worship out of love. But purifying your intention is not a one-time action. The heart changes constantly. It is influenced by what it sees, hears, and experiences. And so sincerity must be renewed over and over again. Every day, every prayer, every action, you must return to your intention like a gardener returns to his garden, pulling out weeds, watering the seeds, removing what harms, nourishing what benefits. The heart is no different. It must be protected from arrogance, from envy, from pride, from showing off, from seeking approval. These diseases are subtle. They creep into the heart quietly. They turn acts of worship into performances. They turn sincerity into competition. They turn humility into self-righteousness. And unless you notice them and uproot them, they begin to shape your worship. But when you purify your heart, you begin to worship Allah, not for the feeling of being spiritual, not for the appearance of being religious, not for the praise of others. You worship because your soul longs to connect with the one who created it. Reconnecting through sincere worship also requires removing the layers of distraction that stand between you and Allah. In the modern world, the heart is constantly scattered. Notifications pull your attention, social media clouds your focus, entertainment fills your mind, conversations drain your energy, and after being pulled in 1,000 directions, you sit down to pray and expect your heart to be present. But a heart that is scattered cannot become present instantly. It needs stillness. It needs quiet. It needs time to return to itself. This is why worship requires intention before action. You must consciously decide to unplug from the world so you can plug into the one who created it. You must decide to be present instead of rushing. You must decide to feel instead of just performing. The sincerity of worship is built long before the action itself. It is built in the moments of preparation, in the moments when you slow down, in the moments when you remind yourself that this act is for Allah alone. And when you enter worship with this intention, the experience transforms you. Prayer becomes a moment of grounding. Instead of standing on your prayer mat thinking about the world, you begin to feel the weight of your forehead touching the ground in sujud. You begin to feel the beauty of confessing your weakness to the one who never tires of hearing you. You begin to feel the sweetness of leaving your burdens at his feet. This is where the heart reconnects, not in the outward movement, but in the inward surrender. When you pray sincerely, you feel lighter, not because your problems disappear, but because your heart learns where to place them. And that is a gift only sincerity can give. Reading the Quran becomes different too. Instead of rushing through verses, you begin to listen to what Allah is saying to you. You begin to feel the words, reflect on them, absorb them. The Quran is not only recited with the tongue, it is recited with the heart. And a heart filled with sincerity hears meanings that an insincere heart is deaf to. Even one verse becomes enough to shift your life. Because you are not reading the Quran to finish it, you are reading it to understand, to connect, to allow your heart to be shaped by divine wisdom. This is the essence of reconnecting through worship. Dua becomes deeper as well. Many people treat dua like a request form. Ya Allah, give me this, fix this, remove this. But sincere dua goes far beyond asking. It becomes a conversation. It becomes a moment of honesty. It becomes a place where you admit your flaws, your fears, your hopes. You talk to Allah the way you cannot talk to people, because Allah already knows the words you are afraid to say. He knows the secrets you cannot voice. He knows the uncertainty that keeps you awake. And when you speak to Him sincerely, your heart begins to heal. Not because the situation changes immediately, but because you remember that you are not facing it alone. Allah listens, Allah understands, Allah responds in His perfect way at His perfect time, and the heart begins to settle. Sincere worship also requires humility. You must approach Allah with the awareness that everything you have, everything you do, everything you achieve is a gift from Him. Arrogance blocks closeness. Pride blinds the heart. When a person believes that their worship makes them superior to others, their worship loses its sincerity. Because true worship is born from humility. It is the recognition that without Allah you cannot breath. You cannot walk, you cannot wake up, you cannot repent, you cannot worship. Everything is by His permission. Everything is by His mercy. When the heart understands this, it becomes humble. And a humble heart draws nearer to Allah more quickly than 1,000 outward actions done without sincerity. Humility is the door to sincerity. Purifying your intention also means letting go of the desire to control outcomes. Many people worship Allah with expectations rather than devotion. They pray so that life becomes easier. They make dua so that problems disappear. They fast so that blessings increase. They give charity so that success comes. But when worship becomes a transaction, the heart becomes frustrated when outcomes don't match expectations. You pray, but the hardship remains. You make dua, but the answer is delayed. You strive, but the path is still difficult. And so you begin to think that your worship isn't working. But worship is not a currency you give to Allah in exchange for a smooth life. Worship is the way you align your heart with the one who controls life. It is not meant to change your circumstances. It is meant to change you. When you worship with sincerity, you learn to trust Allah's timing, His wisdom, His plan. You learn that closeness to Him is the greatest outcome of all. Sincere worship removes the heaviness of obligation and replaces it with the sweetness of longing. You begin to crave the moments you spend with Allah the way the thirsty crave water. You begin to look forward to prayer, to dua, to reflection. You begin to feel restless when you go too long without remembering Him. Because sincere worship fills the heart with light, and once that light enters, it refuses to leave. It becomes a companion. It becomes a guide. It becomes a comfort. And that comfort begins to overflow into every part of your life. You begin to speak differently. Your words become softer, kinder, more mindful. You begin to see people differently. You look at them with compassion instead of judgment. You begin to handle hardship differently. Instead of breaking down, you bend toward Allah. Instead of feeling lost, you feel guided. Instead of feeling alone, you feel accompanied. Sincere worship transforms the heart, and a transformed heart transforms the life. Purifying your intention also requires letting go of comparison. Many people compare their worship to others. They compare their knowledge, their progress, their spiritual experiences. But spirituality is not a race. It is a journey, unique, personal, intimate. Allah does not measure you by someone else's path. He measures you by your sincerity, your effort, your struggle. The person who prays slowly with a sincere heart may be closer to Allah than the one who prays beautifully but only for show. The person who reads one verse with reflection may be more beloved to Allah than the one who reads a whole juz without presence. The person who whispers a small dua with tears may be more spiritually elevated than the one who raises their hands publicly while wanting to be admired. You are not meant to compare. You are meant to purify, to grow, to deepen. And finally, reconnecting through sincere worship requires trusting that Allah knows your heart better than you do. Sometimes you will doubt yourself. You will wonder if your worship is accepted. You will wonder if your intentions are pure enough. You will wonder if your efforts matter. These doubts are natural. They are a sign that your heart cares. But instead of drowning in self-analysis, place your trust in Allah's mercy. Ask Him to purify your intention. Ask Him to keep your heart sincere. Ask Him to make your worship pleasing to Him. Ask Him to guide you, even when you don't know how to guide yourself. Allah loves when His servant is turned to Him in humility, and He loves sincerity, even when it is still imperfect. Sincere worship is not about perfection. It is about presence, honesty, longing, effort. It is about returning to Allah again and again, even when you feel unworthy. It is about choosing Him, choosing the path that leads to Him, choosing the actions that bring you closer. And the more you purify your intention, the more your heart begins to feel connected. The more you reconnect through worship, the more you recognize the sweetness of closeness to Allah. And that closeness becomes the anchor that carries you through every moment of your life. Hardships have a way of exposing the truth that comfort often hides. When life is easy, when the days are smooth, when everything seems to fall into place, the heart easily forgets. It becomes distracted, occupied, absorbed in the temporary world. But when hardship arrives, when the ground trembles beneath you, when something you relied upon collapses, when a door you thought would always be open suddenly closes, your heart wakes up. Hardship shakes you not to break you, but to remind you. It pulls you toward Allah in ways that comfort never could. One of the greatest mercies hidden within pain is that it redirects your heart back to the one who created it. Instead of running away, the believer learns to let hardships pull them toward Allah. Darkness is not always a sign of abandonment. Sometimes it is a sign that a new light is about to enter your heart. People often fear difficulties because they feel out of control. They fear losing what they love. They fear change, uncertainty, disappointment. But these very moments are the invitations Allah places in your life to come closer to Him. When everything is stripped away, when you have no one to rely on but Him, when the world cannot understand your pain, when your heart finds no refuge except in His remembrance. That is where true closeness begins. Hardships purify the heart. They remove the illusions you cling to. They show you what truly matters. They remind you that nothing in this world is stable except Allah. And when you finally accept that, the fear you once felt begins to transform into trust. Every hardship you face is customized for your heart. It is not random. It is not meaningless. It is crafted with divine precision, measured with mercy, designed to awaken something inside you that comfort never could. There are lessons your soul can only learn in the space between loss and surrender. There are strengths you can only